Father, I give you praise and I give you glory. I want to talk to many of you out there who are up this time of morning. I actually should be somewhere actually sleeping or resting and getting ready for the things that I have to do um, when I get up in the morning with some of the counseling sessions and deliverance and counseling that I do. But you know what? I posted a Facebook post and I thought it would be a blessing for me to come on and share with you guys. And the post went something like this: make the money you get, pay something off, make more money, or solve a problem. Those were three principles that Evelyn and I came up with, and I want to share my heart with you. Can we talk? Every now and then, sometimes, looking at my life today, some 40 some years in marriage with Evelyn and doing extremely well. And it is no doubt Evelyn and I both are I'm extremely successful right now in this season in my life. I think I could actually stumble and it turned into a blessing. I'm talking about not stumble away from God, but just go through simple things in life. But it hasn't always been that way. By the way, good morning, Bonnie. It's so good. Bonnie Stance, a dear friend of mine. She worked with me. She saw me in some of the most hurt times in my life, and she saw God raise me up. Bonnie, I often think of how it was when we all worked together at Stokely. I love you, girl. I really love you, dear friend. But I just want to say to you all that I want to share with y'all something here. Today, yes, I'm blessed, and God has tremendously, and I give God all of the glory, God all of the praise, God all of the honor for the blessings that is on Evelyn in my life. But it has not always been that way. And Facebook principles that I shared, and I call this wisdom keys of how we overcame during financial struggle, and it's our testimony. And not these three principles that you saw me share here. And it says here, make the money you get, pay something off, make more money, or solve a problem. I back in the day when Evan and I first got married, I'm gonna tell you, all we had was love and debt. We had love and bills. When I married her, I came with bills. And she had extreme bills. And we were struggling. It was the time of the hardest struggle in my life and all in our lives. And also it was the time of the greatest closeness that Evelyn and I ever had. Because whether we were struggling for food, to other people, they probably looked at us and said, well, y'all work for this, y'all doing that, y'all must got this and that. I will never forget those days when my mom worked at a poultry plant, and they would have on Friday special on chickens, on chicken, and my mom used to have to actually buy extra chicken herself and help Evelyn and I because we were at a place where we were so financially broke, so many bills and what have you that we could not afford sometimes to even get groceries. And you know one thing, guys, I'm gonna tell you this. Sometimes when I look back on those days, those were some of the most struggling but fondest days. I remember at our kitchen table in our trailer, in the trailer we lived in at that time, it was starting to break down. The cabinets were starting to come off of the walls and what have you. We couldn't afford to fix certain things, and those were some struggling days. But we had love for each other, and uh, and I remember real fondly, guys, how that we had a little teeny toaster oven, and it was one that fit just barely big enough to fit on the table, just a little thing. And we would put our little quarter hind legs of chicken on it, and we would barbecue ourselves a chicken and have a meal and what have you of what our mother gave us. Today, y'all, today the Lord has blessed us every week, not to show off, not to prove I got anything or I'm better than anybody in my family, because I got some great brothers and sisters. But every week, that same mama, my mom's in her 90s now, and every week, because of how God has blessed us through that season of struggle, I go every week and I support my mom financially. And I plan to do it, Evelyn and I, till the day the Lord takes her home. Those are some fun days. But anyway, I put these wisdom keys because some of you are struggling. You were struggling before COVID ever came. You have been warfare. I say to couples in here, and I say to those that are what you call they call single and what have you. God is a provider. He will work out and help you through even when I we had to get chicken from mama. Even when we there was a place called King Cole. We when we had to go buy canned vegetables, we would buy them by the case and they were the bent cans. But yet the Lord helped us to survive. And Evelyn and I learned during that season, I want you to hear my heart. Evelyn and I learned during that season of struggle. We learned during that time to not take finances and money for granted. Well, eventually, as life would be, we kept working, we kept paying bills. There were times when we would have a vacation or vacation money that we didn't take the vacation, we took the money and kept working or found a job to do. We had to do extra and it was a struggle. But it was what it took for both of us working together to make it. I say this also. I pray to God. I pray to God that you that are couples, you that are married, I pray to God that y'all work together. I pray to God that whatever y'all are going through as a couple, I pray that you go through it together with God and holding tightly on each other's hands. And the reason why I say that, because I talk to so many couples that they're so divided. Well, anyway, during that time, Evelyn and I had, as I said, extreme bills and a whole lot of love for each other. Now, as time went by, yes, I began to be this little preacher, and I studied working at the job called Stokely, and we were just doing what we could, saving money as best we could. And sometimes there was no money to save. Yes, ma'am. Sometimes there was no money to save. We struggled with everything. And including trying to tithe. We struggled with all of it, and the Lord brought us through. But I always had this thing wherein I could find a job. People liked me. So I could find a job, extra work, extra hustle. I was able to attract money that way. And as the Lord began to help us begin to come out of credit card debt, uh, when we got married, we were way back. Evelyn was way back in what it taught for the trailer lot where we were at. We didn't own no property then. Now, I want you to hear this. We owned no property. And Evelyn and I got married, and it took us a while to catch up the trailer rent on the trailer lot where she lived before we were married. Remember, the trailer was breaking down. Now, here goes the odd thing. During that time, it was in 1983, between 82 and 83, the God had given me a vision for our church. And at the same time, when he gave me a vision to start a church, Pilgrim's Ministry of Deliverance, Evelyn and I were doing a little bit better working with the state of Delaware then. So we were able to find a house. Now, I want you to hear what I'm saying, because some of the people who look at me today look at me almost like, oh, that man got money. He got this, he get this, he's wrote books, and he's all over the world. It has not always been that way. But I want you to hear me share with you the sacrifices. I want you to hear to share with me the things that we went through during those days to get to where we are today. Now, hear what I'm saying. Here, Evelyn and I had found a house. I mean, I saw her how that the trailer where we were living at that was falling apart, cabinets breaking down, stuff just the particle board in the floors was holes in it. I want you to hear this. And we found a house and we were approved. Both of us was working for the state, and we were approved for this house in a little town called Millsboro. It was right where Stokely was. It was where I worked from, and there was a little house on a small piece of property that we were approved of. We were approved to get the house, and here goes the crazy clincher. Right during the same week we were approved for the house, the people who owned the property of Pilgrim's Ministry of Deliverance, which then it was just a piece of land, not the ministry. They said that they would do a contract with us if we were able to come up with the finances or co-signers on the finance. Now here we go. We're getting ready. We're starting a church, and the house we had passed on being able to buy the house, and we were also had the contract the same week of the church that we have now in Georgetown, Delaware. The same week. Now, the trailer we lived in, I saw my wife, my new bride. I saw her come home many days after working hard in the kitchen at Stokely. I could see sometimes she was depressed because we couldn't afford to fix this and couldn't afford to fix that. But we were starting to build up money in our little credit union. We were starting to pay off credit card debt slowly but surely, enough to still have a good enough name to be able to get the house. Got that? We were in 3 days supposed to go sign the contract on the house. When we had a meeting with all the members that was going to work with us at Pilgrim's Ministry, the ones that was going to be a part of the church when we got it started, none of them had any credit, and none of them could be expected to co-sign for the church land. I get it. So I remember that meeting that Wednesday night. I looked at Evelyn, and at the end of it, I said, Evelyn, I said, none of the people can help us at all. If we don't get Pilgrim's Ministry that land, we will lose that. And if I get Pilgrim's Ministry, the church land, if we do that, we can't get the house. So here was Evelyn and I now crossed between a rock and a hard place. I told my wife, I said, Evelyn, you go talk to God. And I'm going to tell you something right now. If the Holy Spirit does not make you comfortable about getting that church land, I will never bring it up again. We will just go wait and find something else. And we'll just take our name that has good credit that could get the church or our house. I will never mention it again as long as we live. The next morning, Evelyn gets up and she says to me, and I could almost cry, y'all have to bear with me. She said to me, and here we were all young and wow. She said, I believe the Lord wants us to have that church. I said, Evelyn, do you understand that if you and I sign for the land of that church, we cannot get that house? We will have to stay in this trailer until we're able to afford it, until the church gets going, because we can't afford both the house and the church. My wife, my wife gave up her home. And now you said, well, Brother Ivory, you did too. Let me tell you something. My life has always been about pleasing God first and making that woman I married happy. And as a man, I felt like, God, how in the world could you give me these choices? I said, if we get to church, we don't get a home. And my wife, who was depressed in a trailer that was breaking down, now I'm asking her. We're looking at her to choose. My wife chose for us to get Pilgrim's Ministry. We got the church, and most of you know our church grew, and God blessed us. And the work at Stokely, I began to become so popular as a preacher that I was eating up all the vacation days I had and all the time, and things began to build. And one thing that I found about God, we, Evelyn and I, gave up our house for the church. And it wasn't long after that, God blessed us with a double wide here in an area called Cool Spring, Delaware, near Lewis, Delaware. God blessed us with that land we sacrificed. And we kept these principles. Let the money that we get, and this principle came from me and Evelyn realizing, assessing our lack, our poverty, our inability to have money and what to do when we got it. We used these three principles throughout that time. The money that we were making, we made sure it paid something off. In other words, it was applied to something that we owed that we could pay off. And sometimes we started from the lesser bill, paid that off up to the greater. Also, we would do things that would make money. In other words, pay something off or make more money. In other words, whether it was working, and in our case, as time went by, it became books and cassettes and this, that, and the other. Whatever we were getting back, one principle we kept was the principle of not living large. In other words, we had money coming in, but we remembered those days of lack and those days of famine. The third thing that Evelyn and I did was, as far as money, we let money solve a problem. We would let money solve a problem means this: help somebody, do something that would actually change a life, and it was more about us. And sometimes, well, do you know that the deposit my mother, I know my mom did it because she loved her son. My mom had 15 children. I wasn't the only son or daughter who could been going through things. But that woman, when my mama helped us with that chicken, would buy her little chicken and say, come and pick up mine, and here goes some for you and Evelyn. That woman deposited that in my life when I had nothing. What she did was, my mama solved the problem. At then, the problem was groceries for food so that me and our two children and Evelyn would have food. Are you hearing me? Every now and then, somebody would slip me a few bucks during those days. And me and Evelyn kept that principle that as God is blessing us, we would use the money that we get to pay something off, to make more money, or solve a problem, something that would change a life, something that would help somebody. Well, needless to say, remember, I told you, Evelyn gave up her house for the church. Then, as time went by, my name became strong, and God had me counseling professionals. I'm not talking about a church service where I get up, y'all need to give me so that I can raise something. No, no. God began to cause me to do counseling on a professional level with professional athletes, actors, and different ones. And I will never forget the first check that I received, which was more money than anybody ever gave me in my life. I flew back home. I came back home with the check and I set it on the table to Evelyn. And I said, Evelyn, make this money produce something. Now remember, we had given away our first house, stayed in the broke down trailer, so that the church, which is still in existence today, Pilgrim's Ministry is doing fine today. We made that sacrifice. Evelyn took the first check that I had been paid for professionally counseling a professional and took and bought land. That gave us a second piece of land. So she gives God one house. She sacrifices to the Lord for the ministry, for the work of God, one house, one home. God gave her two pieces of property. And then as time went by, we paid off the two properties completely. And as time went by, we made our money in our life, pay something off, make more money, or solve a problem. And then we ended up in the house I live with now. I live on a decent home. I live on farmland and what have you. I have a fairly nice house. I'm blessed. It's a fairly nice house. That's all I'm going to say. It's not a mansion, but guess what? For me, it's wonderful. So here we sit now, two homes, other property. And when someone looks at a person like me and thinks to themselves, well, he's living large, he's fat, man, he got all this, he got all of that. You weren't there when we struggled. You don't even know the people that we help with these three principles. As God has blessed us, Evelyn and I have remained faithful. Now, I'm going to say this to you, too. Evelyn has the keen ability to know how to manage money. Me, I attract money. But I was not always like this. I was raised by an uncle in Maryland who owned great deals of property in an area called Greenwood. He had properties where he rented properties. I That uncle that raised me, I had noticed something about him. He looked like everything he did was successful. That grace, that anointing, that favor that God had on that man which I called him my uncle, I also called him dad. The grace that was on his life, somehow, some way, by the grace of God, hit my life. And it's like everything I touch seems to work. I don't get it. I do not get it. I don't, when it comes to church, I don't pump offerings. I don't beg. I don't plead. And look at me. I am not under salary at my church for nothing. I do not receive finances from the ministry that I founded at all. 100% of everything that we are doing is coming from the things that God blessed us with to this day to help other people. Blessed us with through the writings and the books and the shows and the counseling. And that's just the way that it is. But we were not always that way. Do you know what? Even today, Evelyn and I live with much as if we have nothing. Hear what I just said. We have two cars in our yard, nice cars, paid for. They're not brand new. We do not get cars every year. I just don't care, don't want it. I mean, if that's what you want, I'm not the one to tell you how to run your life. But we don't have car debt or anything. None of that. Because those days when we were poor, those days when we had nothing, I think those days is where Evelyn and I cemented our relationship. You know, it sounds crazy. I don't know whether you still listen, Bonnie. But you know what, Bonnie? Sometimes, Bonnie Stancil, I look at how blessed I am today and can eat anywhere in the world, travel at will. If I wanted to take a flight anywhere around the world, I could do it and never hurt me whatsoever. And all I think about is those days when Evelyn and I had the toaster oven, broke is all outdoors, struggling but loving each other with everything inside of us. I think on those days, I don't really need a whole lot of anything, but when I think back on those days, they helped cement us. So we live now under these three principles that the money we make pays something off, that it makes more money or solves a problem. Just a few days ago, I had a new network that is getting ready to come out large on media in 45 days. They wanted to actually kind of get me involved with what they were doing. And I ended up actually offering them my counseling and advice, my wisdom. But I could not get involved with much else in that network because I know my calling. And I told the person, I said, my God, I mean, it was really wonderful for them to ask me. The thing is going to go global. It's going to reach millions of people. But guess what? It's not my calling and what have you. So I agreed to be a consultant with them. Now, you do know that means I will be paid for being a consultant to the CEO that's starting a large multimedia thing. Now, I wonder what a country boy in the backwoods of Stetton in Delaware in a place called Harbison on property that was once a cornfield, how in the name of God does a CEO call and want him to be the sounding board for him in counseling or in just sharing some things that he is going through? It's the grace of God. It is the grace of God. We've done two more contracts, one in November, one in December, to do a large business venture. Once again, how does that happen? It's by the Spirit of God. But the thing that keeps me grounded, and I know, guys, I'm just kind of getting a little settlement. I know some of y'all out there are struggling. I know some of you out there are right where Evelyn and I was, where it's embarrassing to need help. Sometimes you go without food because you don't want to let even your family know you're struggling the way you did. I will never forget. I'll never forget my mama. I'll never forget when times where my brothers or sisters or friends had to drop by and give us a hand. And I've never forgotten these three principles that we live by. So today, when I shared that on Facebook Live, I thought to myself, I said, you know what? If somebody doesn't know me or know my heart, They will think this is one of these preachers' ploys to talk about money, getting money. Let me help you. The ministry has gotten more out of me than what I've gotten out of it. Now, I don't mean God, I don't mean Jesus. I'm talking about we have sacrificed. That woman gave up her house, but God gave her three properties. That woman sacrificed her husband all over the world, and now he doesn't have to leave this chair in his studio at home, other than unless I want to do a contract. That woman, to this day, at our age, is still the boss. That's why I affectionately call her the boss. God gave me and Evelyn a sense of strength and unity that has kept us during the poor seasons and the down seasons. And you know what, guys? I really don't want or need anything. All I want to do is finish holy. I am blessed. I am anointed to cast out devils. I have a powerful deliverance ministry, and I know it. I know that I have tremendous wisdom by God, and I know it. I know that God has given me an administrative wife that could, God Almighty, I've never seen anyone be able to manage and handle books and finances and taxes and all of that. I told some of you the story that when Evelyn and I got married, she wanted to go back to college here in Delaware for a course in business. And she passed it and aced it with all A's with a degree in business administration. One place that she worked for, when she worked for the State Service Center in Seaford, Evelyn was given in her notice that she was going to leave that job. And the supervisors over her supervisor said, "What can we do to cause Mrs. Hopkins not to leave? Can we give her a pay grade higher? What can we do?" And her supervisor said to them, "I don't think you can compete with the boss she's getting ready to go work for." Because she left the state job, then very successful Evelyn was. She left it to work for her husband and God. And her supervisor told her, "I don't think we can match that." And that's when Evelyn left the job working for the state of Delaware, getting ready to get a raise not to go. And she came for the work of the ministry. So if you wonder why I give her such kudos, I don't know what another woman would have did. Her husband looking at her going like, we're 3 days, 72 hours from getting ready to get a home and move out of a breaking down trailer. A breaking down trailer. She was going to get her home. And the woman chose the church. She chose to follow God. And I will never forget that. Those were the roughest days, but they defined us. Those days, listen to me, those days of lack and poverty and having to buy seconds at the places we went. Don't even talk to me about outfit. You know what outfit was? The 4 or 5 clothes that we wore around. Thank God for blue jeans and a job that didn't mind you wearing them all the time because we couldn't afford anything. And now today, I could get, do, or just about buy anything that I want. And Evelyn and I both don't want anything but to finish. We want to finish right. We want to encourage you that where you're at is not where you're always going to be. And listen to me, when it comes to your finances, don't lose it. Don't get upset. Don't beat yourself up. We even had to consolidate bills. I'm just going into it. You hear me? We got to one place with all of those bills because we use sound wisdom. We went to a place of consolidation and consolidate all of our bills into one payable, comfortable bill per month. And we ended up paying it off in time. We ended up wiping that out in time. And we dealt with our financial problem like you do if you're eating an elephant, small bites at a time. And God brought us through. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Yes, we sowed, but it was more than sowing in church. Yes, we gave offering, and it was more than giving offerings in church. Yes, we helped people, and it was more than helping people. And no, we never did that risky stuff of it. We never did a lot of risky stuff. I'll put it like that because if I start naming things, I may touch something that God has stirred in your faith, and I don't want to bother your faith like that. But I just wanted to understand you that the closeness that we had during the time of struggle, the commitment that we had when we had nothing. Now I'm not impressed at stuff. I'm not impressed at all of any of that. What I am impressed at is that God forged us in the fire. We were our love, our commitment, and even our strength that we live today was forged in the fire of famine and lack and poverty and need of help. It was forged there. I've not been always this way. We have not always been blessed like this. And I'm going to tell you, we help a lot of people. I mean, some of the newer contracts that are coming my way, which I'm not going to get so far into my personal business and what have you. Somehow I spend all day long talking to people who are getting paid counseling sessions. People think I'm just doing deliverance only. I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot more than deliverance. Those counseling that I do is a lot more than deliverance, a lot cheaper than most people, and it's more than what you think. This is what I'm doing is not a church service. When I counsel with CEOs, when I do these contracts that I'm doing with different ones in these in media and different things, it is not a church service. It is different. It is actually ministry and business. One part ministry, other part business. Totally two different animals. If you come to a conference I'm doing, that is not a deliverance counseling session. That is a conference. Are you hearing me? When I'm counseling with a CEO, that's not a church offering. I hate to have to explain that to people because some people don't get it. They think when they see someone like me talk about counseling or talk about this, that, and the other, that I'm talking about church all the time. I'm not. I'm not. I'm doing a whole lot more than that. So, anyway, God is a provider. Yeah, Charlotta, Sister Speaks, you said it right, Sister Floyd. He is a provider. But whatever way that God does to provide and bless you, I beg you, don't forget where you came from. And listen, be careful of living larger than what you are, living above your means. Be careful of that. And when God begins to bless you, you might want to take that blessing and think about where you were and and guide your life somewhere in the middle. Meaning, you're not broke now, are you? Good. Then find yourself a place in the middle where you're not spending frivolously, wasting money, throwing it away as if it's always going to be that way. Now, brother, I know God's going to be my provider. Be quiet and listen. Make the money that you have, pay something off, make more money, or solve a problem. I'm right now have people working right now for me. My editor, which is in my the one that does a lot of my work. I got somebody working for me in California. I've got about 3 new books that I'm getting worked on. We're getting ready to have them between the people in Charlotte that works with me and the people in California that works with me. We're working on some new stuff. There is so many things that I am doing right now that will generate finances and what have you. And I'm telling you, and those and some of that stuff that y'all don't even know. Whatever God put in you, my God, let that make the finances you need. Let the creativity in you, let it make finances. What we do is, if we're not helping somebody solving a problem, uh, doing something, we do things that will cause us to make more money. I'm connected with certain things, not only counseling, not only publication, not only media, not only this, that, and the other. I'm connected in other areas that things that generates more funds, so that I can do and live a comfortable life, help people. It's nothing like being able to have the resources to help a particular agency, help a particular group, help something that is going on and it's not killing you. So make the money in your life. Believe God for the money in your life to pay something off, to make more money, solve a problem. I ought to have my hide in bed because at 6 this morning I start counseling and I've got a show 9 o'clock tonight that I'm going to be doing with a ministry and what have you. I've got a show that I'm doing at 9 at night and I'll be working throughout the day. But that's what I do. I have never been more comfortable in my life doing the work that I do from home, the stuff that I do, and what have you. I thank God for it. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, as I get ready to close, I know I shared a great deal of my business talking about our Evelyn and our business, but Father, I wanted to testify and talk to people to understand that we are not always where we are today, and they will not always be where they are. And throughout your life, the same God that I serve, He's made a way for you. Even if you had to get help from your mama or a friend, He's made a way. Even if you've had to sleep in your car until He was able to bring you out of it, He's made a way. Even if God has always been there. When Joseph went in the pit, God went in the pit with him. When Joseph went into Potiphar's palace, God went in the palace with him. When Joseph went to prison, God went to prison with him. And when Joseph came out and became an advisor over all the economics of Egypt, God was with him. Every level of his life, the pit, the palace, the prison, and then to the economics of Pharaoh, God was with him. And when God finally finished with Joseph, the help and the wisdom and the resources of his life saved his daddy and mama. He was able to save his family during a famine. The same brethren that throwed him in the pit, he now became the provider during the time of famine. You are not always going to be in a place of struggle. I know what it is to struggle, and still in my heart, still in my mentality, I spend and buy and help as if I have little, although it looks like I have much. Because in that place where Evelyn and I were forged, when we were completely poor, full of bills, house breaking down around us, that's where we learned these three principles. Let the money that you get pay something off, make more money, or solve a problem. I love you guys. I hope you could hear my heart in what I shared with you on this Facebook Live. God bless y'all on Vimeo.com. Also, y'all that are on our YouTube. Well, look, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting ready to leave. I love you guys. God bless you.